Music by our wonderful musicians. Are you ready?
Scott's going to record.
Yep, it's recording.
And I'm muting everybody. And now we're going to hear some music.
Wow. Bravo.
That was an original by Jeff called
Jeff,
Caffeine Swing.
Caffeine Swing. Okay, I wanted to get the name of it so we can make sure it goes in the YouTube because this is all.
That was awesome.
Yeah.
That was really good. Yes. All right. I'm going to turn this over to Scott as our co host.
Here we go. It's up to you, Pamela.
Thank you. So for those of you that might be new, I'm going to read a contemplative meditation. There will be a minute of silence for you to think about what I share with you. Then Jackson will bring us in with music. I'll do an invocation, music, and we'll turn it over to Reverend Angelica. So this is from the Science of Mind text. All of the great mystics have taught practically the same thing. They have all agreed that the soul is on the pathway of experience, that is, of self-discovery, that is on its way back to its Father's house, and that every soul will ultimately reach its heavenly home, a knowledge of ultimate oneness.
When I walked in the room, I sensed the presence, and I knew this was a place where love abounds. For this is a temple, the God of love abides here. We are standing in the presence on holy ground.
And so as we travel our own individual path, recognizing that the paths are myriad and the destination is the same, that ultimate oneness, we know that each person we encounter has a gift to share, some form, and that we are a gift to them as well. And knowing that as we accept and acknowledge these gifts, as we accept and acknowledge our connection to each and every person, each and every soul on a path, we also enrich and enliven that which spirit is, the overarching oneness, love, blessing, and goodness that is life. And so if you'll join me, I make a pledge today to keep my eyes available to see the gifts and to know the love. And we let this unfold in its own perfect way. We watch for evidence of our truth. And so it is. Amen.
You're standing on holy ground, and I know that there are angels all around. Let us feel God's love right now, right now. We are standing in the presence on holy ground.
Thank you, Pamela and Jackson. That was beautiful. So this morning we have a treat. I'm going to read her little bio, and then I'm going to tell you something about her from my perspective. So our speaker this morning is a Southern California student of Dr. Tom Jackson and Dr. Leo Fishbeck in the 70s. She became the first minister of the First Church of Religious Science, Edmonton, Alberta in 1985, and she served there for 10 years. Today, that center still meets in the facility purchased during her tenure. Dr. Sue next served as interim minister at the Honolulu Church until becoming spiritual leader of the Center for Spiritual Living in Westlake Village in 1996. In 2009, she gave up full-time ministry, but she speaks and holds workshops and classes and mentors throughout the New Thought community. She is a passionate voice for closing the long-studied books and stepping into being more spiritually active in demonstrating the infinitely positive influence of spirituality on our currently chaotic, finite world. I have known Dr. Sue for a really long time. I'm not sure how long, but for a really long time. And one of the things I've always appreciated her is her availability and her consciousness. Her consciousness is so good. And another thing I've really enjoyed as a writer myself is that she writes something called Truth Tidbits. A lot of them are from Starbucks, and many of you know I love going and sitting in, or I used to love going and sitting in Starbucks, but she would interact with or observe various people and always end up with a message. And it was her, I just love reading those. And so I'm going to put it in the chat as well. You can she has a Facebook page, which she invites you to go to and put a like there. And she also has a website, which is truthtidbits.com. And I'll put that in the chat. Now, what I'm going to do is close down the share. And what I ask you to do is put your view on speaker view instead of gallery view so that you can see Dr. Sue. And so, Dr. Sue, it's your turn.
All right. Good morning, everyone, and thank you. You know, it's a pleasure to be with you. And I don't know the year, but my most vivid memory is of sitting with you and Ted at the volcano for a picnic lunch on the Big Island.
All right.
That was what came to mind the minute we connected. So it's a pleasure to see what you've done. I commend you and all the wonderful people that you've drawn into your magnificent consciousness, Reverend Angelica. And
Oh, they drew me.
that's it.
This, I got to tell you something before you start, Sue.
Sure.
This is the first church that I've known of where there's still people here who were at the beginning 35 years ago of this church.
Really?
They've supported it all these years.
And that's what happens when you're grabbed by that consciousness of God, or that really more than that, the awareness of the presence. And so I know you've been following the theme from Centers for Spiritual Living, One Journey, Many Paths. And when I looked, I saw that actually today's path is freedom. So that's what I will speak to. And it will conform to the long and winding road to freedom. In many ways that we do that. And so I can speak only from my personal experience. And from that vantage point, I know that I'm very blessed to, in so many ways, but very blessed to have had as my teacher, Dr. Tom Johnson, because right from the start, he was the one who indoctrinated my mental atmosphere into the realization that it's all absolute, to the point where if I would come to him with a personal problem, he would say, God is all there is. God and I are one. That movement of spirit is through one and all, and always speaking in the first person, so that there wasn't any deviation from the I other than your expression through you. So I have had a wonderful journey, and I continue to have it. And I have, in fact, the pleasure of enjoying my pre-birthday with you guys today. So after this, I'm off to celebrate with just a few of my family members. Can't do it with the grandkids because they're just out and about too long, too much, too many people involved in their lives. And so I thought to myself, my goodness, look how the journey starts and look how you come full circle. That 6 inches of separation or whatever it is, there's really no inch of separation at source. I have thoroughly enjoyed learning more about myself, which is really the essence of learning more about God. That's simply the way it plays itself out. And as part of that, I think the most startling thing I've ever done in my life on the journey to that freedom, and that freedom more than anything, I think we all can agree, is the freedom from the parts of our own personality and our egoic tendencies that have more recently been referred to as the shadow. Anybody remember a radio show, The Shadow? Who knows what evil lurks in the heart of man? The shadow knows. And so that part of us that has very carefully been created with defense mechanisms and strategies that keep us in distance from finding out that these really are our stumbling blocks on the path to freedom. The limitations of the biggie, which is fear, everything else really stemming from and being an off ramp to another feeling, but it's still based on fear. I remember in the earliest days of my teaching was really very simplified, that no matter what the problem, whether it's related to your personal world, whether it's related to body, health, or your relationships, or money, or your work, or what's going on as an aftermath of this collection of fear, it still all reverts back to a false sense of separation from whatever we refer to as the source, God, infinite intelligence, universal mind, that which is all that is, and that which you and I are. And that's why in my mind, there's only one place to go to, and it's not the easiest place to get to for that human mentality, which is still grappling with that fear and anger and resentment. And of course, it's obvious all of the divisiveness that we've seen in our country. And sadly, in the human realm, it still exists. And so where have we to go? We can't fight the physical with the physical. It just doesn't work. And yet the world is doing that because personality is still what we're confronting in that way of antagonism and anger. So to go to the soul of it all, to the spirit of it all, is to bring resolution. I think it was Mahatma Gandhi who said, we will never solve the problems of the world fighting anger with anger. We can only do that by seeking a deeper awareness of peace that already lives within us. And that's not an easy task. That brings the journey to freedom to a deeper responsibility of myself. What is it that I am doing to inhibit or constrict the flow of the divine from within myself? How do I still draw on those old defense mechanisms of my old inner self? And how do I disallow for it to be engaged with and embraced with the one? So on the journey to freedom, I've taken many, many paths and many detours, and yet I'm always returning to where I belong, to my home, to the heart and the mind and the soul of God. When I went up to Canada in 1957, it wasn't a neat deal where I candidated along with other people, and I was blessed to have been selected and asked to take that ministry. I was someone who had been raised in New York, lived in Los Angeles, and suddenly Edmonton, when those of you who remember also Dr. Frank Richelieu, he was in charge of credentials and placement at that time. And when I said, I'm ready to start ministry, I said, what's available? And he said, well, there's a group that's an independent group that wants to affiliate with RSI. So they're looking, that's the only thing that's available at the moment. And I said, well, where is it? And he said, Edmonton. And I kid you not, I said, well, what state is that in? I was clueless, literally like, where is it? Canada? North. If I go any further north from Edmonton, I'm in the Northwest Territories and I'm in Alaska. And yet something said, well, what have you to lose? They're giving you the opportunity to come up and check out the action and see if it really is a match. And so I came up to Edmonton on a Labor Day weekend in 1985. And the moment I finished the usual round of workshop and lunch with the board and a workshop, I went home, and sitting on the plane, I thought, I'll do it. I want to do it. And of course, that was all. I figured, well, now it's not any longer in my hands, but that was the moment it was in my hands, because that was the moment of synchronicity, of that resonance, which said that which I am ready for is ready for me. And that's the way the whole law is motivated and impelled by love. So of course, when I returned to my house that evening, the phone rang, and the call I received actually was from my dear longtime friend, Dr. Heather Clark, who at that time was in Edmonton. She was very much a leader of that group that was looking to become affiliated. And she said, we would like to invite you to join us as our minister and become the first church of religious science in Edmonton. And all of that enthusiasm, all of that inner knowing, all of that which had already said yes, found itself drawing on the old egoic mind. And I said, well, I'll have to think about it for a while. Big move in my life. I have 3 children, 2 were already out on their own. My youngest, he must have been 20 at the time. He was still living at home. And yet through it all, putting myself, has anybody ever put themselves through such a rigorous process only to return back to the place you started, which simply says yes. Say yes to the God self within. Say yes to the intelligence which has everything possible available, even in our most seemingly illogical moments, which this was. Well, the story that unfolds that supports the path of the inner being, freeing that self that has wanted to take control just to survive, the part that now wants to thrive and prosper and bring peace to yourself and to the world. That is the part that assisted me in the journey, because I was not permitted to come into Edmonton at first. Why? Because I was not yet officially licensed. The board of directors of, at that time, Religious Science International had not met. I was out on the agenda, and the church had no charter. It was not officially a church. And so I was refused admittance to Edmonton on the point at the time I was supposed to begin. And what was suggested was they would bring me before an immigration attorney, but the stipulation was I had to stay on the US side because it was a traveling judge who did not make it to this part of the country for 10 days. And so for 10 days, I holed up in Montana and had to put all of my possessions, was not allowed to have them go anywhere different, found a place to store them. The long and short of the story was, and the group of people, just about 7 of them, that comprised the leadership of the church and that were determined to affiliate, they pooled their credit cards, hired me an attorney, an immigration attorney that went with me to the adjudication. I was granted temporary permission to enter Canada with the stipulation that I do receive my credentials within 3 months. And that's what happened. In December of that same year, 85, I was officially licensed, and the church became the first church of religious science, Edmonton. So the point of that is that freed me. That freed me from the many times I can now reflect back on other opportunities, perhaps not, but I allowed the excuse part of me that would say, no, that's not possible. First of all, what are you doing heading to Canada for your first ministry? You're already 57 years old. I mean, come on, a foreign country, little privileged white person in southern warm California. And all of the other objections, I still have 1 child at home and a family, 2 kids that were still making a mark for themselves in life. And yet for everything that I would present as an objection, and I can continue to present as an objection, there is that divine nature which is changeless. It supports to the degree it is invited to support. It guides to the degree that it is invited to inspire. It protects to the degree that we ask that and know that what we're asking for is simply to be aware of our own perfection. Now, in today's environment, publicly, locally, and globally, this isn't an easy pill to take people who are really incised for whatever that personal reason is, that has now become a collective consciousness, that race mind that Holmes talked about. And so to override that is a chancy thing. And yet it is our opportunity by our own demonstration in whatever ways we have to really contribute as to what you've been talking about, the power of, as Jim Lockhart mentioned, the beloved community, which has been spoken about. I love the writings of Father Richard Rohr. And if you haven't discovered him, you will love him, because he's a universal kind of a teacher that incorporates Christianity, but very much reinforces the idea that the universal presence and power is available and exists within and for and as all of us. And so he talks, as many predecessors have, about that beloved community. We're looking as metaphysicians, as religious scientists, as faith members of this tribe of humanity, to really inculcate that in all of our interactions, because where else do we start? I remember a very dear friend of mine was very much a part of Mother Teresa's volunteer staff here in the States, and then decided to join her in service for a few months in India, and so loved the serving, the teaching, just through the love that she was exuding. You know, we do that through the energy of our own life without proselytizing or without insisting that someone think the way we do. It's the tangible ways that we can be patient and simply be silent while someone is telling us their point of view. And so Mother Teresa had her final meeting with the gal, and the gal had decided that she wanted to remain in India. And Mother Teresa said, "That's beautiful. I truly treasure that. You may choose to come back another time, but aren't you the one who told me that you still haven't resolved family disputes that are going on? Wouldn't it be of more value for you to go home and take what you have integrated within yourself here and heal, clean up your side of the street, so to speak?" And so that's what evolved out of that. And from that, my friend did not return. She found her own life here after solving some family matters and some conditions that she had previously thought were insurmountable. They're not, when aligned consciously with the one presence, the one life, the one source. And so wherever we are on our journey, and it's been a challenging one, no one can deny that, I am so really glad at this point that I have been living on my own for many years, because living alone, when you're free to break that aloneness and go and convene socially and be where you want to be, even if you just want to drop out and have dinner outside for one night at a restaurant or inside, if that previous training of learning to go within, whether you are in relationship with a partner or a spouse, if living alone in your head and in your heart is that other path to freedom, learning to be at peace, as we, you know, the saying used to go, am I at peace with my own body? Am I at ease with my inner world? Or am I still fighting that divisive element within myself, which says, no, you don't want to do that? And so living alone under these circumstances has been really tricky. And yet the call is to take it literally. Here we're taking care where we go and who we're with. That in and of itself is the outer demonstration of come within, as long as you are physically confined, enjoy, even if at times it's not pleasurable, the discovery of yourself. Because the more that you discover yourself, you do discover the best, the finest, the highest part of you. And so it's a reckoning. It truly is a time of reckoning for all of us, a time to examine meticulously our own practices, because if not now, to deepen our spiritual practices, as the Talmud saying goes, if not now, when? If not me, who? And if that's all I'm about, then of what value really am I? I have to contribute. And what is the most valuable gift we can contribute? Our consciousness, which opens up a whole other story. What is consciousness? Dr. Robert Bitzer, magnificent teacher years ago from the Hollywood Church of Religious Science, he used to say, consciousness is the awareness of truth with the big capital T. It's as much as you can garner and tap into and identify with as that which God is, as you, as all, as everything that is. Now, is that a challenge? Yes, of course it is. And yet, if we were all instantaneously enlightened, illumined, we wouldn't even be having this conversation. We'd be all lying like they originally did in the Garden of Eden, naked and enjoying the fruits, the harvest of the vine. I think I'd be more inclined to drink it, though, than to eat it. So what do we have? We have the essence of spirit. What is spirit? Spirit is the consciousness of God as me. We have intelligence. What is intelligence? It's the all-knowing mind of God as me. What is wisdom? Wisdom is the things that you didn't know you knew, but you heard yourself say them and express them anyway. What is intuition? It's valuing that, it's accessing it. If you look at your own spiritual practices, what are they? Are they a quick affirmation? Well, it's better than nothing. Anything that causes us to be consciously in contact with God is of value. And yet, stretch it, meditate. Meditation is something that was never even mentioned in the early days of religious science. It was strictly the conscious mind. Use it to direct the creative mind of the universe in order in those days to, yes, prove it to yourself by manifesting the mate you've always dreamed of, the house you always wanted to live in with him or her, and the money with which to lavishly travel the world and yet enjoy love and warmth and congeniality with people, kindness that you were talking about last week, Reverend Angelica. So if the problem is separation, a false sense of separation from God, what's the answer? Consciously knowing you're one with God, whether you believe it, whether you think it, whether you know it consciously or not, we're still one with the one. But it's dormant until, like anything else, we feed it the energy of our imagination, our enthusiasm, our creativity. And that's a message for the world now. And the world in its totality, our nation in its totality, isn't quite ready to hear it, which means there need to be more of us who do hear it and know it. And in our bubble, start expanding and making bigger bubbles. Anybody ever read Ralph Waldo Emerson's Circles, his essay? You know, literally, it's like starting with that inner being, but gradually letting that grow to such an extent that even automatically, subjectively, we speak the truth. When someone is giving us a different opinion or an argument, I can still hold consciously by repeating to myself, and it's happened. I walked into Trader Joe's the other day, one of my jaunts, the one thing that's my social outlet. I walked into Trader Joe's, and a friend of mine was there, and we didn't have the same political views, but retained a sense of rationality as we lived through that. And I hadn't seen her since the inauguration. And she made what I could perceive as kind of a sardonic, sarcastic remark. And in that moment, you know, I wanted humanly, that old self was just like a Twitter waiting to defend and protect the administration, the world, the life. And yet I just smiled nicely. I said, well, I still, you know me, it's like I still believe, and so do you, that the infinite intelligence of God knows exactly what it's doing. Have a good day. And that's it. You know, we do the best we can all the time with what we've got, and we've got plenty. We have the infinite, no beginning, no end. We have the universal, encompassing, inclusive of everything, excluding nothing. We have love. My way of simplifying it for myself, I've just been very much repetitive in remembering that love points the way and the law makes the way possible. And that being the case, then why not take the possible, not only making it probable, but making it demonstrable? Increase the spiritual practices, come into that place of transcendence where I can still see and not necessarily judge or criticize or blame things that I am not particularly in favor of. It's not my preference. Take a moment to just do that. Stop, look, and listen. Stop that part of you that wants to habitually give you out the same thing it did many times over years ago, but not now. Look within. For me, there are 4 words that are my anchor, because I can silently say them without giving a huge, prolonged talk about it. And the 4 words simply are, God is, I am. So wherever you are at the moment, just know, God, if God is all there is and everything and everyone, then I am that which it is. It's a logical conclusion if we need to rationalize it for ourselves or convince ourselves mentally. But beyond that, you know what it reminds me of? It reminds me of the true symbolism of the cross. In other words, the vertical line down extends far above the reach of the sky and deeper than the bowels of the earth. That is the divine, no beginning, no end. And the crossbar is the way we express it. So even to start doing a little practice for yourself that says, with the motion, because I've learned predominantly from Jean Houston, engage your physicality with your mentality and spiritual awareness. So even if you're standing or sitting, the reminder can be on God is, and then extending your arms outward, I am. God is all that I am expressing, revealing, showing, telling, seeing within myself, and therefore offering it to the world with joy, with appreciation, with gratitude. And that is the freedom. That is the freedom that says there's really nothing to struggle and fight about when I know that there still is something. May look otherly in the outer, but inwardly, there is perfection, harmony, and grace. And so I think I'm going to treat at this moment, I think timing, I just look. So I invite each one now to consciously contact the one through which we all connect with each other. And I speak in the I am, that which is the nature of God, the name that God has for each and every one of us, the name that we share. God is the universal I am that I am, and each and all are the I am of that universality that is personalized by means of me. And so I continue on my path of freedom, the freedom to choose to think, feel, speak, and act from a point of conscious contact with God. God is, I am, and all that I am ever knowing, doing, or being is my expression of God. And that convinces me that deepening my practices is of all importance. I meditate. I take time for silent introspection and allow for that creative intelligence to provide me with the tools with which to navigate this world that we're all now living in. I welcome change. I free myself of anything and everything in the past or anything currently that inhibits and constrains the presence of the one by means of me. I give up any and all of the false masks I wear. I come to a point of authenticity, of courage, of kindness, of love and intelligence. And I move through my world without needing to insist that anyone think or feel the way I do. I simply allow that energy of love to point me to where I need to be, to do the work that the divine wants to do by means of me. And the law makes the way possible, providing the people, the places, the things that contribute to a world that works more kindly, respectfully, and in a more unified, harmonious fashion, seeking solutions, seeking the most desirable results for all. And so I go forward from now into the next now moment, which is the only moment that I have, that anyone has, more convinced than ever before that there is one life, one power, one source, the substance of all supply, and that supply is ideas. That ideas is moving those ideas into action. This is all about the infinite good, the ultimate reality that I know for myself and about all. It simply reminds me to remember to clean and clear away the debris that keeps me from being that which I am. God is, I am. And in gratitude and acceptance, I move into this action, knowing, of course, it's all good because it's all God. And together we give thanks and affirm, and so it is.
Thank you very much, Dr. Sue. That was perfect.
You're so welcome. My pleasure.
Just perfect. All right, I have to share the screen again. And the next thing we have on our agenda this morning is Pamela Kelley is going to sing a song for us. So take it away, Pamela.
Thank you. And with appreciation to Karen Drucker, J.D. Martin, David Roth, and Faith Rivera, I give you morning prayer. I will surrender to my greatest, highest good. I will release any fear that blocks my way. For every step I take is taken in pure faith. and I am stronger every moment, every day. My mind is willing and my heart is open wide. I trust my instincts and let spirit be my guide. I vow to live a life that's real and pure and free as I continue walking in this mystery. I will surrender to my greatest, highest good. I will release any fear that blocks my way. For every step I take is taken in pure faith. And I am grateful every moment, every day. There may be walls, there may be roadblocks in my way, but I can choose to take a higher path each day. And now I know that what I thought was safe and sound was only habit and regret that held me down. I will surrender to my greatest, highest good. I will release any fear that blocks my way. For every step I take is taken in pure faith. And I am kinder every moment, every day. I am more loving every moment, every day. And I surrender every moment, every day.
Wow, thank you very much, Pamela. That was so beautiful. And the way that segued from the talk